at these restored flows and the habitat redistribution. And I just wanted to highlight this statement here that was in the National Academy of Sciences report, because I really like it. It says, impending climate change should not be an excuse for delay or inaction, but rather as a motivation to avoid irreversible losses and restore the resilience of the ecosystem. I think that's really an important conclusion of the National Academy of Sciences. It says it's important, and it's more important than ever. We have been taking some actions out in the park. This is the Cape Sable area that Hal talked about. We have 2 plugs that were out here that were part of some historic canals that are allowing seawater to go into the backcountry, salt water, and also drain the area. We're looking at putting some new plugs out there to stop that flow. We're also looking at, in terms of rebuilding, some of these things are kind of no-brainers. This was one of the cottages that was out at Flamingo that was built on at grade, and now we're looking at elevating structures. We've also learned through the hurricanes that these floating docks that we have, they seem to do a lot better than these fixed docks that are still in the Buttonwood Basin. Out in Tortugas, we're focused on trying to get a more resilient ecosystem. We put in place a marine protected area, a no-take marine reserve, and again, what we're trying to do, where there's no commercial fishing, no recreational fishing, you can't anchor, you have to use a mooring buoy, you can't anchor. The whole concept here is having an ecosystem that's more healthier and more resilient to climate change. And out of Tortugas, where we seem to, if you take all the hurricanes and look at that, X marks the spot for about the last 10 years, everything goes over Tortugas. And we've lost part of the Mobile, go back here, right here, we're in the process of shoring that up. And these are some of the problems of the structural problems of the fort. And I'm not saying they're the result of climate change, but with those more intense hurricanes I talked about, we're really worried about maintaining this cultural fabric. And we do have right now an $8 million line item construction project with scaffolding to rebuild the exterior of the fort. I want to just wrap up here with some final things that we're doing. We're part of a climate-friendly parks program. We've inventoried all our emissions in the park, and we're doing everything we can to reduce those. We also have an educational and outreach program. We've done a publication, and I have some additional copies with me, Climate Change in the South Florida Parks. We also have a publication, Climate Change in the National Parks. We get a lot of people who come in our front door at our co-visitor center and want to know about climate change. We're also recommending some climate change related stimulus projects of the Reinvestment Act, Recovery Act projects. We're also taking a look at our management policies. If you go through the Park Service management policies, our national policies, it mentions climate change once. It never really tells us how to deal with climate change in the context of managing parks. And finally, we're very much involved in the Miami-Dade Climate Change Advisory Task Force, and also we're part of a new national committee that the Park Service is established to really look at climate change. You know, there's some real issues, management issues, policy issues that we're dealing with in the Park Service. Let me just give you an example and then I'll wrap up. There are certain things with climate change that there's a natural component. There's natural change. And our management policies tell us to embrace those changes. However, if there's an anthropogenic change, we're supposed to do something about it. The problem we're faced with is, you know, Mark Lewis is here, another superintendent at Biscayne. What do you do when you've got anthropogenic changes interwoven with natural changes? How do we manage the parks for that? And I think it's a challenge that we deal with every day. And I'm not sure what the answer is. And they're going to be it's going to be very difficult to partial out or tease out kind of the anthropogenic change. So I think these are some of going to this particular panel, these policy changes or policy challenges that we have. So with that, I will turn it back over to the chairman.
Thank you, Dan. If everybody will take out the book, if you pick one up, this is going to help me reduce my time presentation. The quote, "I am persuaded that global climate change is one of the most important issues that we will face this century." Governor Charlie Crist at his first climate change summit 2007. Now, for all you students of public policy and science, this statement was not based on science or public policy. It was a political statement. And that's exactly how the practice at the state level is developing. And there's nothing wrong with that. Our chief elected official had recognized that there wasn't anything occurring at the national level that the state could rely on, that other state governors were have been and are continuing to be very active looking out for the best interests of their state in this area of climate change adaptation and mitigation of greenhouse gases. And he made a very important political decision to direct the state and the state bureaucracies and resources in the direction of finding out what was the best path for Florida to follow in terms of energy policy, which are many benefits from an aggressive, multifaceted energy policy, including greenhouse gas reductions, which you've heard about. And most importantly, again, what's the right long-range issues in terms of adaptation that Florida needs to study. So with the direction of the governor, a number of initiatives have been taking place at the state level, and I'll cover them very quickly. The time span is from 2007 till today and into the future. And they really do focus on a wide variety of steps to broaden the state's ability to support, investigate, encourage, regulate, and provide disincentives for the way we produce energy. That's a national defense issue, support to our national security. It's a pocketbook issue to every one of us, and it has a direct effect on how we can play our part in greenhouse gas reduction. So the state has been back at a point when the state had money to invest. Remember that? It wasn't that long ago. We actually had money in the state of Florida. We put it into some alternative energy grants just a couple of years ago. So we were moving in the right direction before the bottom fell out on the state budget. The governor also initiated by executive order, his purview with his agencies, an energy and climate change action team, which a number of people in Southeast Florida were involved in. And there's an excellent final report that came out in October of last year. It's at energyeog.myflorida.com. Really, from a Florida perspective, what are the key things that we can do based on what was going on around the country in reducing greenhouse gases and getting ready for adaptation. Last year also was a convergence of the interests of the legislature along with the governor in trying to further consolidate Florida's initiative in this area. And a bill passed in the spring regular session of 2008, just a year ago, consolidating a number of initiatives, creating a new commission, the Florida Energy and Climate Commission, which has 7 members appointed by the governor, 1 by the chief financial officer, and 1 by the agriculture commission, reflecting the agricultural interests in biomass fuels as part of our alternative energy strategy. I was fortunate to be appointed by the governor, and I'm now the chair of that commission. And we've only been meeting 90 days. So I just gave you the report of that commission. And the important thing here, and here's the convergence of federal and state policy in a fast-moving area of policy implementation. When we interviewed for the commission jobs, no one ever asked us the question. The words were never spoken. Federal Stimulus Recovery Act. That wasn't on the vocabulary just 3 months ago. And today, everything we're doing is about distributing funds and for energy and climate change activities from the Federal Energy Stimulus Act. So I wanted to make that point because we're going to be, in a sense, detoured from policy implementation while we become grant implementers and administrators. The state of Florida used to get about $1.5 million annually from the federal government for our entire state federal grant program. We augmented it in good times with state funds. This year, and I'm just talking about funds that are energy related from U.S. Department of Energy coming through our commission or directly from U.S. Department of Energy to counties and cities, we're looking at about $320 million. And that is the scale of new resources that are coming in that can be used, we hope wisely, to address specific policy questions. As you know, this is stimulus recovery funding, so it's job-oriented towards getting jobs created as quickly as possible. There's a lot of different tensions on this process, but it's an opportunity, and we need to work at the state level with federal partners who are also involved with this act, with the regional planning councils, with the counties, the cities, professional organizations, interested citizens. We have a great opportunity, and it's probably a one-time opportunity for this much resources to be invested in these issues. The additional things that happened last year that are really just now unfolding in terms of state policy as it relates to these issues, where there were amendments made to our state growth management law that the state law now requires the Department of Community Affairs monitor comprehensive plan amendments by counties and cities to see the degree to which they're decreasing the amount of vehicle miles traveled for new residential projects. And DCA is just now beginning to flesh out how that can be implemented. We've got many other state agencies, the Department of Management Services and State Buildings, DOT in the transportation area, Department of Environmental Protection and the new air quality standards, which are modeled after those of California, Public Service Commission, renewable energy portfolio. You may have heard about this in the paper. What's renewable? Is nuclear energy a renewable energy? Is clean coal a renewable energy? This is the policy debate that's taking place in the legislature as we sit here today. And during this calendar year 2009 for the 2010 legislature, our commission, working with the Public Service Commission and DEP, will be putting together a state cap and trade program. That is, you may have heard about that. It's a way of creating a trade-off program for CO2, carbon dioxide emissions, and will create funding, we hope, that can be reinvested back in positive ways within the state. It may well be that in cap and trade, in the renewable portfolio, and in many other areas, that the state will be preempted by new federal legislation, which is being debated in the Congress as we speak. So it's a fast-moving set of policy issues going on. It's been unexpectedly fermented by this new funding. And we have a governor who continues to prioritize this issue, and that's very important because he has the ability to direct his agencies at this issue. He doesn't have complete agreement in the legislature. That seldom happens. But Florida is one of the leaders in this area, and we've been recognized, especially in the area of adaptation, for moving forward as quickly as any of the other states. So with that as background on the state, I would like to introduce my good friend and professional associate from the South Florida Regional Planning Council, Carolyn Deagle, who's very involved, as Dan and I are, in both Miami-Dade and Broward County climate change task forces. Besides that, she's got an extensive background in policy and education policy, where she was with the governor's office, and now for many years as the executive director of the South Florida Regional Planning Council. Carolyn Deagle.
Thank you, Jim. Well, thanks for everybody for hanging out this afternoon, Friday afternoon. And there's a few good friends in the that are here today. I mean, I know Loretta's here and Natalie's here. People that have worked with the council in the past, and many of us have worked together over time. And I can't say thank you enough to everybody here who has worked with the council over the years in the many initiatives that we've had. Again, everybody on the panel has been a partner, Jim and others together. I just want to cover a few things. Some of the things that I think are important are the overarching issues from a policy standpoint that we all are working towards. We have been trying very hard, and Carl is here too, I think, Carl Coleman, hey, there you go, with ULI, who's been working with us on